Hello and welcome to the EDRM Global Webinar channel. My name's Mary Mack. I'm the CEO and Chief Legal Technologist for EDRM, and today's webinar is an EDRM collaboration with our trusted partner, iConnect. It's called Everything Anywhere, a comprehensive webinar on software as a service, SaaS, and eDiscovery. Our faculty experts are Ian Campbell, Mike Fedorowski, and Brian Midnitsky. We welcome your questions and feedback in the council. Questions are going to be answered at the end of the webinar today, and the webinar will be available for replay at your convenience, as are all of our EDRM webinars. Kaylee Wallstead, EDRM's Chief Strategy Officer, is here with us today. Kaylee, tell us some of the resources we've got available for our folks on the webinar, please.
Absolutely, and welcome to EDRM's On24 global webinar platform with many, many more ways to engage. If you look in your console to the right of your screen, you'll see a question mark. This is where you can type in your questions for today's faculty. Slides will be made available after the webinar has concluded. And if you click the paperclip for related content, you'll see today's resources curated just for you. First, there's On24's engagement tool descriptions. You can download that to better understand all the different ways you can engage. You can click the link to schedule your demo with the experts at iConnect and check out their very, very exciting technology updates and have a curated demo. You can also learn more about iConnect by clicking the link. And up next on EDRM's webinar channel, November 9th, the modern dynamics of working with deposition transcripts. Speaker bios can be clicked and popped up to learn more about today's faculty. And the latest news is where you can subscribe to EDRM's weekly newsletter and never miss a thing. And just like Zoom, we have smiley face emoji and many more for reactions to the webinar. And we highly encourage you to engage with them. We are having a lot of fun with them on this platform. The Twitter bird is where you can follow EDRM and iConnect on LinkedIn, and you can schedule a meeting with iConnect on the book a meeting icon. And back to you, Mary.
Well, thanks, Kaylee. And our faculty today is absolutely stellar. They've been working together for years, and we are just thrilled to have them here. Ian Campbell, of course, you all know as the founder and the Chief Marketing Officer of iConnect Development, LLC. It's a global market leader in producing cutting-edge, innovative eDiscovery software products and services for our legal industry. And prior to iConnect, Ian founded another company which provided network and document management for law firms as well. So he's been in this for a long time with a degree in industrial design, and we're so grateful to Ian for his service on our EDRM Global Advisory Council. Welcome, Ian.
Great. It's great to be here. Thanks, Mary.
And Ian's brought his A-team with him. He's got Mike Fedorowski, who is a senior manager of business solutions for iConnect, where he's worked for over 2 decades. And his degree is in paralegal studies. And Brian Midnitsky is manager of iConnect Assist, where he's worked for 15 years with 10 of those on the front line of supporting clients with technical support. Brian's a SEDS with advanced coursework in the Microsoft stack. And these gentlemen are going to take us through something that we've been watching develop over the last couple of decades. We cannot wait to see what you're doing now with your team. Ian, take it away.
Sounds great. Well, thank you, Mary. And I'm actually going to turn my camera off here. I simply put it on so that everybody could realize that we didn't do this whole thing by ChatGPT with AI. And I am, in fact, a real person. So, but video off. Good stuff. We're just going to bounce through here. I know everybody wants to kind of get to the meat of the presentation today. Again, my name is Ian Campbell. I'm the founder and Chief Marketing Officer at iConnect. I was on a conversation recently with David Cowan and Tom Morrissey, and we identified that each of us has a minimum 25 years at legal tech. So I think that's we've kind of been there, done that in the eDiscovery realm for quite some time. And just to double check microphones, I've got Mike Fedorowski, who is our Senior Manager of Business Solutions. Mike, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. Happy Tuesday to everyone.
Good stuff. And Brian Mazinski. Brian, you can hear us okay?
Absolutely. Thanks, Ian, and thanks, Mary and Kaylee. I appreciate it.
Okay, good stuff. Okay, let's jump in. We are going to, we've got kind of a thick hour here where we're going to try to keep right on timelines. We'll do a little bit of an introduction for those of you who are not familiar with iConnect and sort of who we are and what we do. We want to talk a little bit about optionality. We realize that eDiscovery tools need to be all things to all people. And we've put together a roster of various offerings of the iConnect platform to make sure that we can meet the needs of the different use cases that people have when they require eDiscovery tech. We're going to do a little bit of a feature deep dive. There are some very unique things that iConnect does in the eDiscovery realm in and around document review, and we're going to dive into those, including showing off some of the new features in our latest release. And then we're going to jump into SaaS, talking about infrastructure, security options, pricing support, some of the things that a few of you have come here to learn a little bit more about today. And then we are going to wrap up with a Q&A. So please, if you have questions during the session, I think there's a Q&A button somewhere on your screen. I think yours is a little bit different than mine. But please type in your question. We'll field those near the end. Okay, continuing on, everything anywhere. This was a tagline that we kind of came up on the marketing side because we realized that this is what we need to be for everybody. People have a lot of different requirements in an eDiscovery project. Sometimes it's nothing more than I have my data, it came out of concordance, I need to put it somewhere, I need to filter it and create a PST. Sometimes it's I've got a long-term 3 to 4 year project that I need a home for it. It's extensive, it's international, and it can be quite complicated. And so what we wanted to do was make sure that what we're talking about today are the various ways that the iConnect platform can be offered. When it comes to iConnect, we have expanded the offerings of iConnect significantly. We really cut our teeth in and around eDiscovery, mainly in and around large-scale, complex legal cases. A lot of them international, a lot of them well north of a million a million records, sometimes into the billions of records. But what we have found is that the needs of eDiscovery, the concepts that we all take for granted, things like securing the data, importing the data, searching the data, identifying information, some level of analysis, and then some kind of an action at the end, either to produce a subset of data or potentially share that information. Those requirements have gone beyond the scope of a legal case. And we've identified within our client base, and certainly the prospects who talk to us, the fact that there are things like intrusions out there, breaches. And so we have a version of iConnect, which has been specifically focused in and around breach and incident response. That's going to be launching early in 2024. We also have a unique offering in and around the analysis of legacy data, either to sanitize the data for private information or to simply cull down the data to get rid of some of what we call rot, redundant, obsolete, and trivial data, such that larger corporations and organizations can better control the data that they've been told they have to hang on to that maybe now they don't need to hang on to. And then further, we have quite a large footprint in the government arena. We already do work for people like the FAA and for things like incident response for tower incidents with the FAA. So we've got quite a footprint in the government area, and that's a whole area that we're focused on. So we sort of have a commercial division managing breach, data governance, and eDiscovery, and now a government division managing specifically government requirements. In any of those scenarios, we certainly see ourselves as experienced, creative, agile problem solvers, obsessed with simplifying your data. That's what we do every single day. We're going to jump now into a little bit in and around sort of who iConnect is and why what we offer in the marketplace is that little bit different. And Mike, I know you spend a lot of time talking to clients. You spend a lot of time evaluating their needs and identifying specifically when we get questions in and around how we're different than a competitor, being able to talk about the unique things that iConnect's bringing to the table. I'll maybe pass this over to you. If you can walk through some of these with us, that would be great.
No, absolutely, and thank you for that. Is my audio coming through clear?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, then. Well, the fact that, as you so delicately pointed out at the beginning, I've been doing this with you guys for about 20 years now. But I remember back my early days in iConnect, I was trying to convince people that they could safely and securely take their scanned paper images that were TIFFs and put them online for review. And here we are now talking about why it's so important that everybody needs to move to SaaS, and that's what people are yelling and screaming for. It's very interesting because we've seen a lot of changes over these years. You talked about the legal tech changes and things of that nature. One of the things with iConnect that really does differentiate us is take a look at the headlines any point in time over the course of the year, and you're seeing all of these companies sort of merging, being acquired, disappearing, things of that nature. By and large, when we talk about experience and the strong foundation, this is the same core team from day one that's in place here. And that's one of the things that I think really speaks to what we can do in the platform is the development team is headed by folks that have been answering the call for new development and answering new needs really from day one. We look at the support team and the fact that the vast majority of people upstairs have been here for at least 10 years of experience. So that's a tremendous amount of in-house knowledge, not just on the industry, but in our tools and the needs of our clients to be able to better address all of those things coming in down the road. The big focus on, we know, day in, day out, how do I get my data in? It's got to be easier, faster, quicker, all of those good things. And more importantly, how do I in turn share this stuff? How do I get this out to another tool? How do I get this into another format? How do I just send some documents to an outside party as seamlessly as possible? So all of that stretches around listening to those concerns from the clients and trying to address it in the UI. When I do the demo shortly, one of the things I like to joke around on is the fact that the entire system is only 3 screens for people. Well, that's done by design. That's done based off of feedback. Let's make that UI very intuitive, regardless as to whether or not, hey, I'm just a reviewer coming in who needs to do 3 things versus, hey, I'm that project manager on the back end that had to do 50 things to prep the database for my user to do those 3 things. How can we make that as easy and as intuitive as possible in both in the short term and the long term? And then to that, the answers and the questions we get to what you mentioned at the beginning, Ian, optionality. While the focus today is in and around SaaS, literally just yesterday, I had somebody who that has to be an on-prem deployment because that's what makes them feel most comfortable. So can we do that? Being able to support the software in all of those areas, and more importantly, it's the same software across the board, understanding how important that are things that I think really helps differentiate what we're trying to bring to the market.
That's right. And I'm just going to stick with optionality for a second, Mike, because I think it's one of the unique things that iConnect is now offering. We are all well aware of players in the market who basically have now said, we're not really that interested in an on-prem solution. Your only choice is SaaS. And there's a number of players out there where that's it. They only have a SaaS option. And if you say, hey, can I run this behind my own firewall? It's a pretty emphatic no. From our perspective, we have been behind the firewall for a very, very long time, really since the inception of iConnect. And whether that be in a law firm or a corporation or a government agency or inside a vendor, they've had the ability to run it in the infrastructure of their choice. Why do they do that? They want control of the data. Perhaps there's some form of regulatory compliance that requires it. In most cases, they have some level of in-house skills, litigation support department, their IT people are very comfortable running a system. And if that's the case, we are more than happy to do that. We've got 100 plus systems running on premises behind the firewalls of major law firms, corporations, and government agencies, and they like it that way. And whenever we say, hey, do you want to put it in the cloud? It's a pretty quick no. So we're certainly committed to making sure that an on-premises solution is very much available for people. With that said, we also find some people want it in a private location, but they don't really want to manage the infrastructure. And so we have a network of legal service providers around the world. We refer to them as LSPs. And they have expertise in eDiscovery. They are folks who have been there, done that, And you can find those on the iConnect website, a listing of them and the different skills that they offer, and whether or not that's the people need assistance with collection or culling or translation or search or productions. These are the skills that those folks are bringing to the table to make sure that they can complement the iConnect platform and offer a full service. We also find clients want to use an LSP because they are interested in consolidation. They may have a series of cases which are interlinked or interrelated, and they want to make sure that they're all done by the same vendor. You end up with sort of an inherent knowledge in and around the data, and then they can leverage that knowledge from project to project. Sometimes they need those additional resources. Sometimes they need project management, and our LSPs are very seasoned at offering that. Some of our LSPs are offering it in their own data center. Some of them are running systems for clients in the client's data center. Some of them have chosen to run the iConnect system in Google Cloud or Azure or AWS. So again, in kind of a tier 1 or tier 2 data center. All of those options are there, and that's really where the term optionality comes from, is to make sure that as you work with your litigation team, as you work with your infrastructure team, you can put the data where you need to put the data based on what you need the data to do for you, as opposed to what iConnect is offering. However, the third leg to the stool really has become SaaS, and SaaS is something that we're going to talk about in a minute after we look a little bit further into the product, mainly because we've had a number of people say to us, can't you guys just do it? We've, to be frank, kind of resisted that for quite some time. Well, we've recently found, though, as many of our vendors have come to us and said, can you guys do it? I don't want to be updating Windows. I don't want to be dealing with infrastructure. I don't want to take on the risk of intrusion detection and backups. Can we work with a certified iConnect infrastructure provider and provide our services and bolt that together? So we're going to talk about the different ways that people are planning to use SaaS and are using SaaS already. We've had this up and running now for, I'm going to say, about 4 or 5 months, and we already have a roster of clients and a roster of data already in play and working very successfully. So it's been a great start for us. But I want to focus a little bit back on product, because ultimately, as we move forward, whether or not the system is being installed on premise or through a legal service provider or SaaS, it's the same version. We've seen in the marketplace a little bit where a new feature gets added by one of our competitors, and it's only available in their SaaS version as they try to wean people away from the on-prem version. And that's not really how we approach the market. We want to make sure that that same version is available regardless of how you or your client are interested in consuming it. Brian, we haven't picked on you a little bit here. I'm going to bounce over now to product, and maybe you can talk a little bit about what we have recently done with the platform and some of the impact that you see it making now and in the future for some of our clients. And Brian, you might be on mute.
Sorry, that was me. Sorry.
Okay.
This is a quote from our CTO, Ayad Al-Kabi, regarding changes that have been made in the V11 platform. And I won't read the quote, but one of the key words that you'll see in the middle of this quote is the word Elasticsearch. We revamped the back end of iConnect. There's a heavier reliance on Elasticsearch now throughout the platform. These code changes have made the platform even more powerful, more stable, more strong, and it gives us the ability to implement things like artificial intelligence down the road, or to interconnect with other systems that are more modern and doing fun things with data. And that's our big hope, is that as we continue to grow, we'll see really neat things with data. Elasticsearch makes that easy.
Good stuff. And the one thing I will say is that although Elasticsearch is new to the front end of the platform, Brian, we've been running Elasticsearch in the back end of the platform for quite some time. So this is not our first rodeo with Elasticsearch, correct?
No, it's true. And this is really more of a making Elasticsearch do more for us for the platform, expanding it out so it takes on a lot more responsibility.
Yeah. Good stuff. Okay, so we're going to bounce over a little bit to product. Mike's going to do a demo in just a few minutes. Our goal really today was to talk about a couple of different things that some of you may not be familiar with, specifically in and around our analytics offerings. We, like others, are looking at how to bring in perhaps not ChatGPT, but maybe some of the other AIs out there, the other generative AI, and sort of bringing that into the platform. Not quite there yet, but certainly lots of research going on internally on different ways to make that an offering within the platform. However, core analytics is really key, and Mike's going to talk a little bit about those today. One of the unique things in the latest version of the platform, which is just releasing over the next few weeks, and some of you here today on the phone, actually, or on the call, are actually going to be seeing stuff which is not in market yet. It's past QA. It's currently being organized by our support team for deployment. So this is kind of a little bit of a sneak peek of what's going to be in market over the next few weeks. One of the unique things is dynamic table view. And the ability to sort of do a search and immediately chart and graph the results, and then tweak that search and refresh the charts and graphs. So in real time, you can see the impact that some of that search culling can make on the actual data collection. Exemplar is a very unique piece. We're going to talk a little bit about a case study that used Exemplar. It's the ability to create a synthetic document. So imagine, if you will, you could go to a client and say, hey, if there was we'll call it a smoking gun, if there was a perfect document out there, what would it say? And have your client actually create for you a fake document, a synthetic document. We have the ability in the platform to pretend that's a real document and then go find more like this. And we've had a number of use cases where that's made a significant impact in and around folks being able to find in relevance ranking the top 500 documents that are exactly along the lines of the issue they're looking for. Predict is a CalTAR functionality that's built into the platform, and certainly has made a significant impact in a number of large projects that we'll talk about in a second. And then automated redaction, we sort of have a code name internally of Cover for that, the ability to find PII, identify it, be able to redact PII, peel it off, look underneath, secure it, print it out with PII on it to generate new PDFs, lots of different things. And then just as we go into you doing a screen share, Mike, some of the stuff you're going to be showing today is really the blocking and tackling of a manual review, be it an investigative review or an eyes on all kind of next review. Certainly with 15, 20 years in eDiscovery document review, we have identified a lot of shortcuts, a lot of ways to optimize that review. And I think that's what you're going to help us focus on today, correct?
I will.
Okay, I'm going to let you do a screen share on your end and pass it over to you. I know we timeline, we were trying to keep it in around 15 minutes for the demo. So I'll give you the heads up around the 3-minute mark.
All right, perfect. And are you seeing my login screen now in dark mode?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, just want to make sure it was up. Great. And for everybody looking, yes, I am working in dark mode, just like on your phone or your tablet. That's a user preference setting. You'll see me toggle between a few different logins today, because clearly I'm going to be covering a lot of ground in about 15 minutes as far as functionality goes. But all of that said, hopefully you'll get a little bit of a flavor, and maybe a few of you will want to jump in and do a little bit of a follow-up demo so I can go deeper down the rabbit hole on any particular item. Now, before I jump in, like I mentioned at the beginning, we know ease of use is always critical for folks, as easy as possible for all parties coming in. Therefore, right from the login, a couple of things that we do that are a little bit unique is obviously we can set up multi-factor authentication in place here to deal with all of the security concerns. When I go inside my iConnect system, just so everybody knows, we use a groups and roles security model. Groups, what do I have access to? Roles, what can I do with it? That kind of thing. So it becomes very easy to have extreme standards along your security, and a lot of different teams put them all in a single database, and people will only see what they want to see. And the other little thing we add in that is very unique is the ability to actually alter the hard-coded interface itself into numerous languages. I can work in Mandarin Chinese, for example, throw it in Japanese, work in French, Spanish, Russian, etc. Well, only my English is very good. That's what I'll jump in on here. And as I mentioned, for the vast majority of users coming in, the entire system is all of 3 total screens. The first one doesn't even really count because it's just a listing of all projects I have access to as a user. Grab a project, jumps me into that database. Everything I do is between two screens. Now, all of that being said, every project also has a dashboard component. We'll visit one today when we start talking about some of the predictive review stuff, etc. Move that off as a sidebar just because most users, they don't care. They need to jump into their database and move on. Now, we talked about easy in, easy out. Right off the bat, let's say I need to kick off a brand new project from scratch. It's really as simple as navigating over to the big green new project button in the upper right, giving my project a name. We'll just go with Test 3 today. Choose your project template from the drop-down list. A note on the templates. Our team will work with yours to craft up your templates. These are not hard-coded by us. What works best for your team or various teams if you're in a firm with multiple practice groups, because obviously the way people like to approach their projects can be very different. What does that mean? What's the database shell look like? What are the coding parameters we like to kick off on? Ian mentioned earlier, in case you do a lot of recurring compliance type work with the same clients over and over again, well, you may be running the same types of searches over and over again as part of that data set. Those can already be waiting for you inside of your database. The exports you like, your production templates, all of those can be wrapped up inside of those customized templates. So again, your team can really hit the ground running. Tie it to one of the clients on your system, and you can even kick off a brand new matter number from here or link it to an existing one, which is what I'll do today. Literally say create project. That starts to build the database shell for me. It only takes a few seconds, and then my screen will flip over when it is ready. And then it literally is as easy as dragging and dropping your data depending on what your data format is. If we come in here and we're dealing with things like the raw native data, simply bring it over to this big box here. If, however, you've received a third-party load file, a production set from somebody else, etc., then we simply drag it in over here. And that's any industry standard file. Again, back to the easy in, easy out. Drag your data in, kicks off, and then the software is going to automate a few things as far as automating the QC and organizing your documents to ensure they all came in properly, exploding out your PSTs so you've got everything organized there in a nice, neat folder tree. You'll see more of that in just a second. Because we've got a lot of ground to cover, let's jump into a database and take a little bit of a closer look at it. So here's a little bit of a sneak peek into version 11, as Ian talked about. You'll see inside of a database here, that traditional table view, as it were. You'll notice that your coding designations, etc., can be written back into that table view. You'll see the folder tree that I talked about over on in this particular database on the left-hand side. However, one of the nice things with rolling Elastic into the front end now, as well as not just the back, is as a user, you can rearrange your screen however you see fit. If you like folders on the left, if you like charts and graphs at the top of your screen, you'll see you can maneuver all of those on your own. But the folder area allows you to essentially create virtual folders, almost like a filing cabinet, that allows you to organize all of your folks. They work just like working with a search. Your documents are sitting inside a click to bring up anything in place. And from here as well, we also get into some unique things like the very top of my toolbar allows my users to flip this around into a variety of different thumbnail modes, for example, where I can get a preview as to all the documents that are coming into my system. And it doesn't matter if we're dealing with things like the small images, as I highlight a few here and I work with drag and drop foldering down on the side. If I was to then decide, oh, I'd rather work with either larger or even much larger thumbnails in place to get more content or context to ensure my data had all come through properly. They're all entirely in sync, regardless of the mode I work in. You see the exact same documents are highlighted in place, giving me that same sort of drag and drop. And from here, if I were to step in and do any sort of searching, just to give you guys a little bit of an idea here, as I scroll down, the dynamic table view Ian talked about, you'll see I've got an item custodian pie chart I set up here, a file description by item custodians where I can zoom in on particular areas. I've got a file type categories system. I've got file type categories by the sent date and time to see when these come in. All of these, not only themselves are dynamic, if you like visual style searching. For example, I could say, oh, I need Shia Pitts and I need Jamie Robinson here, added to the top. Do my little search. You'll see how not only are my documents brought back in my table view, but my charts and my graphs have updated as well to be in sync with what jumps up in place. So being able to customize those for folks that really like the visualization notion inside, being able to see how the timeline graph may change simply based off of a search result, being able to do that in that table view is obviously very, very critical. Now, a couple of other things from this particular area, talking about the easy in, easy out data scenario. A few things that users really like are the ability to step in and put documents into a folder, simply select them out of your table view or a thumbnail view in place here, and quickly being able to share them with outside parties or other members of the team. It's as easy as throwing in an external email address or an existing user in place here. Literally, a package name is like a subject line. Include the text, "Hey Jane, here are the documents I want you to look at," and the software will automatically send out a secured link that they can download those files from. We set a default as to when it'll expire of 7 days out, but you could set your own customization as far as the expiry goes, etc., to on the fly send data out of the system. Back when we added that in 2019, I believe it was the favorite feature at the end of the year. That can be done as a group of documents or right out of the viewer on an individual document as well. So we step in here, my little mass action area, for example, allows me to do some very powerful things right through the front end, including the ability to delete records, probably something you don't allow most of your attorneys. Apologies to any of the attorneys on the call here, that allow them to do right out of the database. Maybe you want your project manager to certify that sort of scenario, but you'll see here, I set up templates, all the different types of templates, from priv logs to batch printing to PDF, something really simple, to, hey, just batch printing out my redactions in place here, to my Canadian friends, Schedule A and B affidavits have been set up as a template. All of those one-click exports in here are customizable for your team. So it really is designed to be a very easy in, easy out scenario, including the ability, as Ian talked about, to redact records directly out of the database. Now, this is a little bit of a sneak peek, so I'm going to jump me over to my existing database right here, give you a little bit of a better idea here. Ian talked a little bit about the PII and some of the different analytics inside and some exemplars. I've got a few set up here. When we start talking about different analytics in the system, that can, of course, cover a high end. If we're talking about some of the simple basic things, we make it easy for the users in the regard like, hey, I like this document here. Let me see everything that is related to it. As simple as your email threads, compiling the entire thread for you, letting you know where the attachments are and where the inclusive emails are, the ones you need to put your eyes on, so we can allow you to essentially grab that set and then take a timeout from what you're doing right now. And you'll notice my little breadcrumb trail here, shift me over to a third screen to the right, just like swiping on your phone or tablet, where I can basically do a timeout in the folder or the search I'm in, focus on just that email thread where I can look at them as near dupes and then slide right back to mass code when I understand what's going on with them. In the case of my near duplicates and similar concepts, we'll light those up for you here as well. And we take a look at my similar concepts. This leads us really well into the exemplar that Ian talked about earlier. So we'll say I've got this document that I like in place here, and I simply say, bring me everything that has a similar concept. Software, of course, will bring over the result set with similarity scores in place. When I take a look at my patient guided knee arthroscopy here, we see we get a quite extensive list that comes back for me with decreasing similarity scores. Well, again, all about prioritizing review. The one issue, of course, in this scenario, regardless of the tools you're dealing with in this industry, everybody who uses similar concepts, it's looking at all four corners of every page of the document. And as we all know, rarely do all four corners of every page of the document hit on exactly what you're looking for. It's usually certain components of it, etc. And that's really where the power of exemplar comes in. I'll talk a little bit more about that during our case study, but to show you how that works, it's literally one of our search functions. So we find it in the area where we search. And to Ian's point, I can literally step in and I'll just say EDRM for today, give my virtual document a title. And then as we take a look here, it's essentially a blank slate. One of your subject matter experts can simply type in exactly what it is they're hoping to find. I've seen numerous clients cut out the beginning of a claim document, post that in there, and depending on what side of the fence you're on, you're either hoping to find stuff like that or hoping you don't find anything like that. But more importantly, once you get into documents, you may go through this document and think there's nothing of any interest, except you want more stuff exactly like we see here in that little bullet list. But that's the only piece that's important. Right from the viewer, content, I can add that directly to my exemplar. So in essence, I'm creating myself a virtual document which is made up of what my attorney described they were looking for, and then the actual sort of quote unquote smoking gun text, the really important key stuff that I need to find more information on. This is in turn what we then run our conceptual search against to bring you a far more refined and accurate result set where we can dramatically decrease the false positives. I'll give an example about that when we get into our case studies in a few minutes down the road. But that's a nice, easy way to work with some of those key sort of functions as far as analytics goes. Outside of that, if you're a fan of more visualization items, we can, of course, work with items like the clustering components. Grab my clusters here where I can say, hey, I like the visualization. Sight unseen, let the analytics pre-organize the data based off of the primary concepts that are being discussed there. So we can see my largest cluster in place here uses some very clear language as well, which is another bit of a differentiator in place here where we can see things like medical documents in this data set, knee surgery. My largest group of documents discuss cartilage transplants, replacement of damaged ligaments, torn cartilage. I have a much smaller cluster here, a handful of documents that are focused on the use of critical care services, little research being done in the United States yearly reports. As a user, double click simply brings it back as a search result. But if you're far more comfortable working with the sort of saved search approach to things, well, as opposed to the visualization, those clusters can be replicated for you just like saved searches. Again, the largest clusters on down. So as a user, it works just like searching. That again, part of the easy in, easy out lens to it's really easy to get up and running in this because the basics and the buttons all do what you think they're going to do inside of the system. Now,
okay, Mike, that's your 3-minute warning.
That's my 3-minute warning. Last but not least, let's talk about the differentiators in and around some of the analytics in place with PII. Ian talked about credit cards was, I believe, the exact example he used. I've got this as a saved search. When we start talking about PII in the system to make it easier to find, we handle all of that just like it's a keyword search. And analytics bring accuracy. You'll see I've got my little Visa number here. I've got Discover card number here. Even though my document tells me I've got an Amex and I've got my 16-digit number in place there. I've even got CVV and expiry date information. The AI recognizes, hey, that's a numerical string of gibberish. In no way, shape, or form does it match up with any known credit card numbering convention anywhere across the globe. As such, it does not bring it back to me as a false positive. And then last but not least, before we wrap this up, Ian talked about having the AI run in the background, work with Predict, work with the oversight functionality to automatically alert you to errors across the coding based off of everything the AI learns from. We call that oversight, just to give you a bit of an idea as to what that looks like. Really quick and easy. The endpoint result on that means in real time, I can literally jump in here and simply say, hey, give me my oversight statistics. How's the review team doing? And immediately I can see with my summary, everything that's been reviewed. Every time the AI has detected an error, it's been verified that yes, in fact, the user was indeed wrong. So you know what your team's error percentage is. We can start reporting back on that literally in as quickly as 50 documents. I actually only trained this data set on 51. And then we get into very granular reporting so you can make better decisions as the review goes along. Error percentage by issues across the board. You'll see Ian was a rock star in my database. However, Miguel, he's terrible on issues 2 and 3, but he's awesome on the first issue. Maybe we need to redelegate these documents over to Ian because he doesn't seem to be erroring out on them. We get into the error percentage by date along the way, percentage by days of the week to see if a pattern emerges, even reviewers' error percentages across hours of the day. So anybody who's sitting in who works with contract attorneys or anything of that nature, this is a great way to understand at any point in time where is the review going. And then for those that don't like pretty graphs, one-click export will pre-format that into a nice, easy-to-use Excel because that's the way the office prefers to work. And that's my 3-minute whirlwind tour. back
Good
to
stuff.
you.
I'm going to cut you. I'm going to cut you off there, Mike. Thank you very much. If I can just get the screen back, that would be perfect. I do want to just actually kind of add on to a couple of things that you talked about. The oversight piece that you showed right at the end. Just for context for people, imagine, if you will, you've got reviewers, a team of reviewers, international reviewers, and they're going along going, yep, that's a bank deposit document. Yep, that's related to bank deposit. And then they come across Yankee season tickets. They're not really paying attention. They're having a sip of coffee and they accidentally click the, yeah, that's a bank deposit document. Our system is smart enough to know, whoa, wait a minute, that check mark is inconsistent with all the other coding which was done in and around that issue. We're going to flag that. And think of it, the graphing that you just saw is a report that an admin can look at, a project manager can look at the end of the day to identify any documents that really contain a red X. So you can go back and validate and really what your team has been working on. The other thing I'll mention, you mentioned the credit card numbers. Our system doesn't know what the credit card numbers are. So it's not like you had to put in 15 credit cards and say, hey, go find these number strings. We're literally just saying, go find credit cards. And whether it's credit cards, driver's license numbers, passport IDs, dates of birth, proper names, cities, phone numbers, email addresses, IP addresses, our system is smart enough to go in and find that stuff, even though it doesn't know what it's looking for from a numerical string perspective, but it knows the context of the data that it finds. Once it's found, you can export it, you can highlight it, you can redact it. You got lots of different options. So just to sort of follow up on what Mike was saying there. I'm going to go over to something else, though, and talk now specifically about SaaS and the version of the software that you've just seen, all of the features that you just saw, all of those work on the on-prem version and in the SaaS version. So now start thinking about that easy onboarding user experience and that sort of 2 clicks to set up a project with a drag and drop. That's the kind of functionality that iConnect SaaS is bringing to the table. What I do want to do, though, is just talk about those lines across the top. Why are people starting to use iConnect SaaS? Well, a couple of different things. People who want to bring their own project management expertise, but they don't want to bring infrastructure expertise. They don't want to be dealing with backups and intrusion detection and Microsoft updates and hardware. Kind of ongoing updating of the hardware. They'd like someone else to take care of that. They want to bring their project management expertise. In the same way, we're seeing more and more consultants and LSPs have a similar tact. They want to manage the data for the client. They want to make revenue, actually, from doing that consulting, but they don't want to manage infrastructure. And iConnect SaaS is a perfect place for that. And then finally, we have some people who literally say, I've got a project, it's 3 months, I know what I'm doing, I just need to put it in, get a little bit of assistance with it, and pull it back out again. We've pulled together some unique pricing and different ways to interact with the system, but ultimately it really has been built for people to bring your own project management expertise, or bring someone else's project management expertise, or bring no project management expertise, and we can help you with that. Brian, you've been really onboarding a lot of brand new projects, and what are you hearing from clients about what they're starting to like?
Well, I think the big thing, Ian, is really, as Mike mentioned, with the couple of screens and the being able to get a project stood up in a couple of minutes. I think that's the big thing. There's, we support all the standard, industry common file types like, DAT files and OPT and production sets, and also, processing loose native data or PSTs. The ability to just drag it from your desktop onto the iConnect platform and have it run and have it import and have the project stood up. We work a lot with our clients in the SaaS environment to get good templates so that really, once the data is loaded, it's 3 clicks to give security to the users and off the project goes. So it's a huge time saving over hundreds of clicks or a bunch of complex security. We set that up ahead of time so that, new project onboarding is super, super simple.
And with regard to templates, I mean, what kind of the iConnect template, case setup template, really can be set up with a lot of levers, right? So that all the way down to, hey, I've got another reviewer, I want them to inherit the settings I had for the rest of the reviewers. I mean, there's a lot of things inside that template, all the way to which charts and graphs to include in the dashboard, correct?
Correct. We can set up graphs ahead of time. We can set up field layouts ahead of time, processing configuration settings on a template basis. We can customize the coding. If one particular client has a very specific review coding panel or a specific issues or privilege panel that they want to just reuse over and over and over again, no problem. We take the main template, we make a few tweaks. Any further projects deployed from that template automatically inherit the new changes. And so we can get really granular with it. We can really customize to the workflow that suits the team the best.
And I think the one thing we found recently, there's been a fair bit of, I don't want to call it chaos, but some level of disruption with several of the people in the eDiscovery market. We are seeing more and more people saying, I need to move my stuff. And we have built and continue to build a number of different migration templates for people, and we don't want to name names, but I think you're pretty comfortable now that regardless of the sort of format you get data in from a competing tool, we can bring over that retained knowledge. So it's not just here's a DAT file. We can start to bring over some of that case intelligence that's actually been built in a secondary platform, correct?
True. Really, my goal is to never get defeated by data. It doesn't happen very often.
Like
so we really try to get creative if we need to. We have, folks, myself and some other folks on the support team, we're handy at writing PowerShell scripts or custom code if we need to dissect something to get it to work. So sometimes we just have to get creative, but we try not to get defeated.
Sounds great. And then last but not least, we've got that sort of all-in comment in there. We find that some, I'll go back to a story from years ago. I remember adding a new feature. We were so proud of it. And I remember going into a demo with a law firm in Atlanta, like, hey, we just added the ability to do such and such. They went, that's great. How do I turn it off? Because in their world, they weren't that comfortable with some of their users having access to that functionality. And I think one of the advantages with IConnect SaaS is everything is there for you. Mike talked about the PII and the CAL predict tool and the oversight and the ability to redact, the ability to have unlimited number of fields, I think 900 or so fields, unlimited folders, setting up all the templates. And then we can work with a client to turn off what they want to turn off, such that the project management team has access to certain features, but the actual users have access to a different set of features, correct?
Correct. Our client admins basically are one level below the ultimate super admin who would have access to the servers and things. And then they can tailor the security and features to their users as they see fit. If they don't want users to be able to code, if they don't want users to be able to, have access to analytics, if they want to turn off analytics or turn off some of the features of iConnect, they have full control and don't need to engage with us ahead of time before they make those changes. They're free to tailor the experience to what works best for them.
Perfect. Can you talk a little bit about the infrastructure? We are using Microsoft Azure as the foundational platform for SaaS, and maybe you could just walk through. I know we're getting a little tight on time, but just kind of walk through. I saw a post the other day on our internal blog that we've reached a certain threshold with regard to compliance with some of the pretty stringent Microsoft requirements. Maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the certifications we have in place.
Sure, and I'll go quick. I know we're getting close to time, but we decided to go with Microsoft Azure because obviously Azure in the marketplace has a huge following. They have a lot of infrastructure, they have a lot of redundancy, and a lot of security. And so it made a lot of sense for us to be confident in where we put our clients' data. So we've had cases in the past, on-prem systems and other cloud providers have had iConnect cases that have revolved around things like FOIA and HIPAA and DSAR. And we have ongoing cases right now with the VA and relating to the National Archives. And so strong security has always been on the forefront of what we do. We take stringent detail in our code compliance as far as app scanning and certain delivery scanning or delivery standards that we use. And then from an Azure perspective, Azure really keeps us on our toes from a security perspective, and it's very good, very detailed breakdown of the things you need to improve in your environment. And so when we started with our Azure environment, we realized that we'd only scratched the surface of security and what we could implement in the Azure environment, and we're still not done. We have a lot more things on the roadmap that we're going to implement in the next month. But yeah, we're climbing, and the score you were talking about, Azure has a security score. We set ourselves a goal to hit 85% on our secure score for this quarter. Compared to where we started around 57% was our out of the box compliance, and we hit the 85% mark the other day, and we're going to be pushing 90 by probably the end of next week once we add a few more pieces to the puzzle. And then we're seeking out things like SOC 2 compliance and other things. So being secure, keeping our clients' data safe is our huge responsibility at this point.
Sounds great. Thank you for that. People ask about pricing. How much does it cost? How does it compare to other platforms that are out there? It costs money. I mean, I think we have to be quite clear about that. Hosting is not free. However, what we have really tried to do is put together a pricing matrix, which is extremely easy to understand. And the word unlimited comes into play. You can find that on our website and a full description of all of these different items. You can see them there. By paying for per gigabyte storage, we are providing to the users all of those things in an unlimited fashion. Unlimited users, projects, analytics, automated redactions, training resources, etc. So I think we have heard horror stories in the competitive marketplace where, the per gigabyte price might seem reasonable. However, everything's extra. And by the time you're done, there's a services bill which is astronomically higher than your hosting bill. That's really not how we meant to move things forward. And to that end, we've really adopted this sort of per gigabyte approach where everything within the platform on the SaaS is in fact unlimited. Mike, maybe you could now walk us through just a couple of high points in that pricing matrix.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that's really nice is the fact that it can be used from a simple transactional kind of scenario where, hey, I've got a couple of gigs on a single project that I just need to get in, do a little review on, and get out as quickly as possible, to the whole, hey, I'm sitting on a couple of terabytes. I know this thing's going to last me 2 years. What does that kind of look like as far as a long-term commitment with discounts that can fall in place? And so when you talk about that low monthly minimum, literally like $200 or $250 is the lowest pricing level in place there, and that actually covers you for like 21 gigs of data in there. So for any firms that are dealing with a lot of those small 1, 2, 3 gig projects, but you just have them all the time, over and over and over again, it's a nice easy way to have multiple projects all sitting under a very low monthly minimum in place. There are no deposits or prepays that go in. As I mentioned, it can be flexible, transactional to long-term committed. We handle all of the billing with a very detailed report on that, because to your point, Ian, about horror stories, is last day of the month, every month, that's the number that goes in place there. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility in there. And to Brian's point and yours about the transparent, simple reporting, we standardize, everybody knows when it's going to happen, so it makes it easy to clear out the old data beforehand. And you've got project level reporting inside of all of that to, again, try to make it very easy to deal with. It's not like you get hit with 18 different line items. It's a very simple process in place here. And hopefully that helps show everybody that unlimited really does mean unlimited, to your previous slide, as you talked about. All of these things go in and you don't have to worry about the extras in place.
Right, and certainly if anybody's interested in actually, doing some calculations, you can certainly meet with members of the iConnect team to help you with that. One of the unique things we've done as well with pricing is that, having been victims of this ourselves, a project starts and then it settles. And you thought it was going 6 months, but it went 2. You thought it was going 2 years, but it went 6 months. We have pulled together a price protect function, which is quite a unique way to look at the market. When a project comes in, if in fact there's a long-term commitment, even if your volumes drop below a certain pricing threshold, we will protect your the higher volume pricing, a lower price point per gig, through to the end of the project. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility in and around not starting with price A and ending up at price C. You actually maintain price A all the way through the life of the project, regardless of the volume. So again, a little bit unique there. I'm going to skip over a couple of the case studies. These are going to be available in the EDRM archive that Kaylee talked about earlier. But just to sort of talk about some of the size and scope of a few of the projects that we've been involved in. This project was actually managed by one of our LSPs called Advancic, 4 billion documents, 350 parties. And they used Exemplar. They actually had 13 different issues. They created 13 synthetic documents, threw them into the collection, and were able to find the top 1,000 documents out of billions of records to go and look at first, and they all came back in relevance order. That resulted in an $18 billion settlement. So certainly we're very comfortable dealing in larger scale projects like that, including some in foreign language. Mike talked about international language interface earlier. This is one where it was actually international language content. 95% of the documents of the 5.8 terabytes of documents were in fact in Korean. They had native language reviewers identify the documents that were high value in Korean, and then using the Sentio analytics that are built in under the name Predict, we were able to extrapolate a coding across the entire collection. And again, that one resulted, it was an IP infringement case, and it resulted in a $1.8 billion settlement. So certainly the iConnect platform has a tenure of really being involved in large-scale, complex projects. The SaaS offering is sort of the other end of the scale. To Mike's point, if you've got a small amount of data that just needs to go up and go down, we can do that too. The one thing I do want to kind of wrap up though with before we just handle a couple of questions is talk a little bit about relationships. Having done this for a long time, we've worked extremely hard to develop strong relationships with not only our LSPs, but also others in the market. And one of the key things for us is really around support. We hear, and Mike, you even yesterday had a bit of a horror story where somebody said to you a comment about some competitive support.
Yeah, that's true. Literally, the comment was, and I will not say who, but the support is literally non-existent. It just does not exist. They are getting no support whatsoever from their vendor in place there. So we know that.
And certainly hats off to Olivia and Matt and Brian who head up our support team and our technical services team. They get kudos all the time. We get emails on a regular basis about how amazing our support is. There's nothing worse than committing to a company and a platform and a relationship that you think is going to be there for you when there's a hiccup, and then all of a sudden realizing that they aren't. Brian, you've been with support for quite some time. Any thoughts on some of the comments you see here?
Well, I think it's important that there's consistency. We're a small team. We try to become an extension of your team, and we're available around the clock. And I think you really get to know the people that you're calling for support. It's not calling and talking to one of 1,000 employees. You're talking to one of 6 employees, and you build those relationships. Those relationships are our bread and butter. We want to make sure you feel comfortable calling us whenever you have a problem.
Yeah, and I think it's always interesting when I hear you say, it's a pretty small support team. We've got tens of thousands of users and a pretty small support team. I think that says a lot about the technology in the back end as well. That really was what we wanted to cover off today. We wanted to give everyone an opportunity to see some of the changes that have been happening at iConnect. Just before we go to Q&A, I will mention that iConnect.com is where you can find out more about us. We've got a resources blog, which is updated, I guess, weekly with different information about the platform, events, and different things, all things iConnect. You can certainly follow us on our socials. And I believe there is, in fact, going to be a link to this webinar if, in fact, you want to share some of this information with colleagues as well. And as Kaylee mentioned earlier, either you can contact us for a demo on our website in the top right-hand corner with a talk to an expert, or in fact, there's a button right here in the 24 platform. With that, I'll maybe pass it back to Mary and Kaylee. I'm not sure if we had any questions. I didn't see any come in, but we can certainly either wrap up or navigate a few of those.
Yeah, well, we are definitely at the top of the hour, Ian. This is a fantastic, a fantastic journey through the evolution of your product. It's absolutely wonderful, and we thank you, our trusted partner, iConnect, for making your team of Mike and Brian, yourself, available for this educational and provocative session. And our thanks to the EDRM community for your kind attention. We'll see you next time on the EDRM Global Webinar channel. Thank you.
Thank you.